welcome back to this is episode 47 of the Women on Amazon podcast. And I'm absolutely overjoyed to have with me today the super sexy in her boudoir outfit for if you're watching this on YouTube. Cara Sayer. How are you, Cara? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm very well. I'm a little bit tired as it's late in the evening on after a busy week in the UK.
Yes.
But yes, I'm not looking super sexy, but I have just got very comfy clothes on.
Yes. So as we record this, it's actually, I'm a day ahead of you, of course. It's Friday the 13th here
Oh,
already. So very auspicious day to record this. And we're coming out of lockdown and you guys have gone back into lockdown, right?
we sure have. Yes, we've been in lockdown for coming up to a week and a half or so, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got another sort of 3 weeks or so to go. In theory, that's what they're
Okay.
saying, but whether or not we're not 100% sure we will come out of lockdown when they say, but who knows?
Well, I don't know if you know much about the Melbourne experience. We weren't told. We were just
Yes,
given, and it ended up being
moving
3 months.
target.
3 months. However, I haven't checked
Well, we've
today's,
got
but
Christmas.
as of yesterday, we had like 13 completely free days of zero, like no infections, no deaths. So,
That's amazing.
it's, say what you will, as tough as it is, but it works,
Well, it's
So,
tough love, isn't it? And I mean, unfortunately, it is one of the reasons I think we've had such a problem with it in the UK is because of the fact that, unfortunately, because we have so much freedom and expect to have freedom, there's a price we pay for that. And that price is that if you have the freedom, people will use it, and therefore things like this will spread. And therefore, it's very difficult to get rid of unless you're literally sort of banged into a house or flat or whatever and told not to move for 14 days or longer.
yep. Yeah, it's a tough call. I don't sort of wish the politicians. I
Oh,
don't wish to be a
I would hate,
politician making these decisions because it
I
because it
hate to
is
be a
tough
politician.
because you like as I said, like we've had 13 free days and then now, things are opening and we're all very positive. However, businesses have been hurt. A lot of, companies have gone into administration. So there's a financial and social costs. However, lives have been saved. So,
Yeah,
where do you draw the line? So yes, I do not wish to be a politician and be making those decisions. However, I'm very
yeah. One
thankful
of
to
my
be.
best friends has actually just done 14 days in a hotel in Perth. So
Sorry,
in
who
quarantine.
has?
What my best friend
Oh,
has
okay, yes.
actually,
Hmm.
yeah, he's just done 14 days in a hotel in Perth,
Hmm.
and that was pretty tough. Literally in a hotel room,
Yeah,
no open windows, nothing.
yeah.
No room to move really. So,
Yeah, but
but now
but Perth has been free for, I think they haven't had a case for over 3 months now. They haven't had community, so they're fully open, and
yeah.
have been. So those 14 days will be well and truly worth it. I reckon.
100%. Yeah, he's having a lovely time now.
Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, to be in Perth at this time of year is awesome. So we're having a lovely old chit chat here. So let's get down to to business. So this is the Women on Amazon podcast. However, Cara, your story goes back prior to Amazon. So for those that don't know your history as an entrepreneur, let's sort of go back to um, what were you doing before you got into, let's say, ecom? What's your background?
So my original career was in PR marketing,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. So I spent sort of nearly 20 years doing that. I actually worked on the team that launched eBay and Amazon in the UK. I
Wow.
worked on the launch of the National Lottery way back just when I left university.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked for a magazine company and ran events and sponsorship and various other things.
So
So
very corporate type
not
environments.
massive. It was a mixture. It was agency, in-house, and an agency. So it's quite useful because it kind of helps you see both sides of the coin when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing both. I don't think even now. I mean, even no, now I would totally not fit in a corporate environment.
Right. Oh,
I
especially
don't
now.
think,
No, no, no.
yeah, but I don't think I ever really fit into a corporate environment anyway because it's
Mm-hmm.
just not sort of straight talking enough for me, really. Too much sort of politics and mess and sort of trying to keep other people happy rather than maybe doing what it needs to be done. So I always found that a little bit frustrating.
Yep.
But yes, so that was my background, and I probably this is Sylvester.
Oh, hey, okay. So Pussycat's just come to join. Welcome.
Yes, this is Sylvester.
He looks like a Sylvester.
He does, doesn't he? I know, right. Mimi might turn up at some point, but she's not very friendly. So
that's all right. We're a cat friendly podcast. Yeah.
So I always thought my career was and starting a business would most likely be running my own PR agency, maybe an events company, something along those lines. And basically, I was working for an events as an events director for a B2B publishing house, and realized my husband and I at the time were trying for a baby, and it took us sort of nearly 3-4 years, and in the end I ended up leaving the job I was in and taking some time out because I was barely in the country, so it would have been difficult to get pregnant physically.
Yes.
And then it turned out it was difficult anyway, so we ended up having IVF treatment, and we were very lucky, and we had my daughter Holly, who is now 13 years old, which is very, very scary.
Oh goodness. Okay, I'm a couple of years behind. Mine is 11 going on 17, but yes, that's possibly a conversation for another time.
Yes. That's like mothers of Amazon, I think.
Yes. Mothers of teenage daughters, funnily enough. There's quite a few of us in that space too.
So anyway, what happened was basically when I was pregnant with Holly, I had a horrendous pregnancy. I was in a wheelchair, and I had to learn how to walk again after I had her. And I was in a wheelchair for about I think it was about 9 months in the end. And when I had Holly, I had her at the end of October in 2007, and I was sort of got back to walking again kind of January, February 2008. And then I was walking all over the place, constantly walking with the pram, and out and about, really enjoying, getting my legs back literally and figuratively.
Yes.
And I think Sylvester's about to do a pounce.
Oh.
And one of the things that I got really fed up with doing was sort of putting a blanket over the pram or my coat when it was cold, or when it was hot and it was getting hotter, I was worried about her burning. But also I wanted her to get some sleep, because whilst I was happy to be at home, maybe 1 or 2 naps, I didn't want to be at home all the time. Every time
Yep.
Sleep.
Yep.
And she was definitely a baby who slept well, but if she didn't sleep, then we all felt the consequences of that, namely her mainly not sleeping at night, because there is a big correlation between good daytime sleep,
yes,
and sleeping better at night, which is not something everyone realizes. They often think that if the baby
make the baby tired and make them go to sleep, but it actually doesn't work like that. That's right, they get overtired.
Basically what happens is the body produces cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and naps actually reduce the cortisol in a baby's blood. And so therefore the more wired and tired and wired they are, the less likely they are to sleep at night, actually. So I didn't know all this at the time, by the way. This is all things I've learned in the last sort of 10 plus years. And I just sat there one time, and I was with a whole group of girlfriends, and everyone was like feeding the baby, and then we were all going to have something to eat, and it was nap time, so everyone's putting a cardigan over the pram, a blanket, muslin, whatever.
Yeah, that's it. So I had muslin cloths with clothes pegs, actually. Yep. Or bulldog clips.
And so I just remember looking at like 5 prams or so in front of me. It was a group of friends with about 5 babies, and I just thought, surely there must be something that would be like a blackout blind for the nursery that we could use for when we're out and about. And it just became this sort of idea that kind of burbled away in the back of my mind. I'd never been involved in product design before, manufacturing, retail, anything, and I just kind of became a bit obsessed by it, and then decided to make up a prototype, which I now know would have been a completely useless prototype in terms of as in taking the product forward. I also then investigated like how I was going to get it made, if I wanted to get it manufactured, and I knew that my sewing skills were not strong enough to even make one prototype, let alone more than that. And so I got in touch with somebody that I used to work with via magazine publishing, who used to do the products that you give away free with the magazines.
So like those, what do they call them? Premium gifts.
Cover mounts. Yeah, they're called. Yeah, we call them cover mounts. And and well, that might be the techie term from in the magazine publishing. It's basically the free gifts you get.
Free gifts, they're premiums, premium gifts.
And I used to work on a baby magazine, and I knew that all the baby products that went on the front of the magazine had to be safe. And I'm obsessed by safety and always have been. And so I basically got in touch with somebody who used to do that. and I still work with her now, like 11 years on. She's still my manufacturer, and we've worked, kind of built everything together really in many ways, in terms of her helping on the manufacturing side, and helping me develop the product to where I wanted it to be. And that took me probably about a year or so.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, because here's my question. What is it you think that took, because so many of us, we go about our lives and we go, wouldn't it be great if there was something that did such and such, or wouldn't it be great if there was somebody that did such and such, and then we don't do it, right? So what is it you think that is different, or that happened, that made you go, you know what, I'm actually going to follow through and see if I can get this product made? Because it's, quite a big leap from, hey, I wish there was a blackout curtain for a pram, to, hey, I'm going to make a blackout curtain for a pram, right?
I really have no idea. I have to be honest and say, that there was the light bulb moment in the restaurant with the friends.
Yes.
I don't really know why I decided to push it and progress it to that point. I think it was just sort of, initially it was, for me, it was just a sort of a challenge. I was, I had a new baby. I'd always worked. My brain is very busy. I think it was something that kind of, made me occupied my mind.
Yep.
And then I think also I sort of got a lot of encouragement along the way. So when I first met my manufacturer, she was a mum of 4 children.
Yes.
And she was like, oh my God, that's genius.
Right.
And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, I've never heard of anything like that before. And I was like, okay, kind of didn't think it was that special,
Right,
but
so some validation.
Yeah, validation. And then I also posted up on some like group forum places, because Facebook wasn't quite as prevalent then as it is now.
Yes. But there was baby forum type things.
Yeah,
yes.
Baby forums. And like a lot of people were like, oh no, that sounds great. In fact, I actually had my first copycat before I'd even launched. So that was quite impressive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was quite impressive actually. Because one of the names I had, I came up with the name Snooze Shade, which was snooze, sleep, shade,
Yes.
shade. Yep. But the other name I'd come up with as well was Buggy Blind.
Right.
But I decided not to progress with that one because of the fact that blind in some languages, because I was already thinking internationally,
of course, yes.
At that point, is that in some cultures they don't have a word for blind as in a curtain. They only have the word blind as in can't see. Negative.
Yep. Gotcha.
So I decided not to do that.
Yep.
No, so I did register the name at the domain, Buggy Blind, but then somebody else registered the domain Buggy-Blind. And basically they were obviously watching what I was doing, and whatever I did, they kind of then did. And, and it was literally this sort of online.
So were you doing this publicly, like you were saying? So somebody else was pretty much copying you as you went through your process. So were you documenting this publicly so somebody could do that?
Yeah, well, not massively, but enough. So I had as soon as I came up with the name, I registered the domain.
Yes.
And then bit with my background being in PR, I was sort of I put up already a website which gave basic concepts, etc. Right. I already had, like, before I even launched in the UK, I've had about 100 pre-orders, which considering that there had been no other product like this before, and no one could see what the product was like. Because
this was before sort of the days of Kickstarter, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I launched, and this other company, I went to a trade show with a prototype, and it was a very rough prototype, and it wasn't actually the finished product either, because after the event, I actually added a few more details. And it was also a little bit shonky because basically I'd sort of decided at the last minute I was going to put in like some extra straps in the middle. So I sewed them on. I was like sewing them on the night before in the hotel. And then I had these buyers coming around. It was like it was a trade show, and I was in the innovation zone. And I had these retail buyers coming around. And I'm like, no, absolutely high quality, this, that, the other. And then I'm like, oops, apart from this strap. Which will be sewn on correctly when it goes into production. Yes. So you just have to kind of like, you have to have a sense of humor about these things, and you have to kind of, be realistic. But this other company, basically, but when I went to the show, they had their website up, and then after the show, it was interesting. As soon as I left the show, I got my first UK retailer who ordered on the spot before, alongside this rather shonky prototype,
Yes.
but was comfortable with the fact that it was going to be a better product,
Yes.
etc.
Mhm.
And so I had an order for 120 units from one of the UK's leading nursery retailers.
Nice.
And then I had interest from several of the others, and I had
Mhm.
contacts with many others as well. So as soon as I put that up on my website, this other company just kind of disappeared. I think they realized that,
Right.
they weren't going to do very well in comparison.
Gotcha.
Um,
Well, that's nice.
and yes. And so yeah, it was that was a big learning experience, because it's one thing a lot of people talk about when they have products, even when they're not actually like their own invention products on Amazon, is like, oh, is someone going to copy me?
Yeah.
Well,
It
actually, even if people
happens.
copy you, it happens, and I've been copied by some big boys. I
Mhm.
sued a big retailer last year who copied me.
Mhm.
And I think I've had 3 legal cases this year
Mhm.
for copycats or plagiarism or
So did
copyright.
you, I'm just going to backpedal here. So did you do a design or a use patent? Did you go down the patent route?
Well, so what I did was, it was a bit sneaky, is that I actually did a patent pending. And
Right.
patent pending gives you usually about a year, in
Mhm.
which time no one actually knows what you're potentially what the patent is for, because no one can see inside the envelope, so to speak.
Right.
And I actually went to worldwide patent pending. It cost me a lot of money,
I
but
was
the
going
thing
to
is, I knew
say,
I couldn't
yeah.
actually patent my product, because it was too simplistic, and there were too many other products that had already been out there, which and it was just, and to be honest, the other thing is, a patent is only really worth it when you're going to defend it.
Right.
And if you've got the resources, I mean, I've got quite a few friends in the nursery industry who've been copied, and they've got patented products. And it actually, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of pounds worth
Yes.
of legal fees, etc. And you've got to really believe that that's the way to go. I'm
Mhm.
not 100% sure that it always is the way to go.
Right.
Because actually, if you've built a strong enough brand, then the
Yep.
product kind of is a little bit, shouldn't the
You
brand
become the
should only be,
generic, don't you?
well, it also becomes the brand becomes more important to the customer than the actual individual products, because
Right.
actually they're interacting emotionally with the brand and what the brand stands
So,
for
so
versus,
that's your moat, as one of my um, mentors calls it. It's the moat around your business that's going to protect you.
yeah. Yeah. And
So,
also,
so
I
the
also
brand, yeah.
believe that, there's an opportunity, and I think I see this a lot with Amazon sellers, that they don't do it, actually, is they don't stand out enough to
Mm.
be different and to
Yep.
do things differently. And they just rely on the same things that other people rely on. And
Yep.
and therefore, I think it's really important to make yourself different, make yourself stand out, because it's a hugely busy and competitive marketplace.
Mhm.
And if you don't try and make yourself stand out, you are going to get just sort of blown away with the rest of the
Yep.
waves, basically.
Okay. So you launched originally. So you did not launch on Amazon, correct? If I'm
Well,
right.
actually, I didn't, but my distributor did. So I
Right.
had a distributor in the UK, and it was a bestseller right from the word go on Amazon, even though
Mhm.
now I look at the numbers and it was paltry. But yeah, we actually sold through Vendor Central for the first year or so.
Right. Okay. Right.
Uh,
So so if you sold through vendor, it means basically Amazon bought it
yeah.
as a wholesale customer and sold it themselves. Okay. So you launched originally. So you had like a Shopify or a WooCommerce or
Well, I
some
had my
kind.
own domain, had a website, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you launched with a website, started selling. What sort of financial investment did you have to make to start from scratch with a brand new invention? Like, did you have some money put aside? Like, did you fund it? Did you go to friends, family?
No, I funded it myself with savings,
Right.
but it was a rather unusual circumstance for the savings, because it was actually somebody I had worked for who didn't pay me. And it took
Oh,
me nearly 3 years to get the money out of them. And so I sort of kept the money on the side. And so I had a
right.
bigger lump sum than I normally would have done. But I basically put my lifetime savings into it,
Right.
which I wouldn't recommend people do now, if I'm honest. I think you don't have
Well,
to.
again, that's the thing with entrepreneurs. We need sort of like big cojones because we're especially if we're female. We need large ovaries to because it's a risk. We're often risking our life savings and our livelihoods and our families' futures, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm actually weirdly a very risk averse person. I don't
Mhm.
like risk at all, and I don't consider myself to take risks as such. I take very calculated risks.
Right.
So, for example, even though I invested my life savings, my attitude, and I remember my mum saying this to me, was, well, worst case scenario is we've got 10,000 of a product, units of a product that
Mhm.
we can then sell at car boot sales for the next
Sell at
like 3 or
markets.
4 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I was
You
like,
weren't
yeah,
putting
okay,
it on a
yeah, fair enough.
lottery. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Okay. All right. So you launched your product, you had it on your own website, you had a distributor. So you're obviously selling through retail uh, as well. And Amazon was one of your retailers. So at which point did you decide to take it back from Amazon and go on to do it yourself?
So I actually took it back from Amazon indirectly in that first year because I was at a trade show in
Yep.
Germany,
Hmm.
and one of my potential distributors, I actually had 22 distributors within 2 years of
Wow.
starting the business. So it went worldwide quite fast.
And how did you get
Um,
those? I'm just going to, how did you get those? Was that through trade
Trade
shows?
shows, connections, contacting,
Hmm.
making contacts,
Yep.
getting PR. I had quite a lot of national PR. So, people
Hmm.
contacted me.
Yep.
If you want to get a distributor, you need to look at who the other people are being distributed by and see whether or not
Yes.
you'd be complimentary, etc.
Yep.
Anyway, so I had this distributor come up to the stand, and I was like, oh yeah, this is my product. And in fact, this was in my first year where I only had one product.
Hmm.
And I stood there, I was like, no, it's 19.99. He went, oh no, it's not actually. It's £12 on Amazon. And I was like, what? Like £12? That's ridiculous. It's a £20 product.
Hmm.
So I rang my distributor. I'm like, right, we're not selling to Amazon anymore. That's it. And she was
Yeah.
like, you don't do that. And I said, no, I'm not selling to Amazon. If they're not going to like value my brand, then forget
Yep.
it. This is ridiculous. So anyway, so we stopped selling. We stopped selling. But then obviously we didn't stop selling because my wholesalers and distributors all were selling to resellers. So by the time the reason I ended up looking at Amazon is because I was getting divorced. So 2014 came around and I was getting divorced, and I had to look at how I was going to support myself and my
Yep.
daughter
Hmm.
because I knew that I wasn't going to get any money from my ex-husband. By the way, we are incredibly amicable and very good friends.
Yes.
Financially wise, I don't get a penny from him in terms of
Yes.
support. So I had to be able to support myself. And it
Hmm.
was either make Snooze Shade work and pay money to live on, or go and get a job. Actually, I didn't
Right.
really fancy getting a job.
No.
So I thought, well, there must be something I can
So
do
at
with
this
Snooze
stage,
Shade.
so you're 3 years in, you've got all of these retail accounts, you're selling, and then you're saying it wasn't financially viable. Like what?
Well, no, because if you think about, and this is what makes me laugh sometimes when I see Amazon sellers complaining about the fees on Amazon.
Mhm.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously, like if you sell to a distributor, they've
Mhm.
then got to sell to a
Yep.
retailer who probably wants about a 50% markup. So
Of
they
course.
want to, the distributor wants to make 20 to 30% as well. So I think I was making like £1.50 a unit or something. And now on
Exactly.
average, I make about £6.50. It's a
Yep.
huge jump.
Big
Um,
difference.
and
Yep. Hmm.
it does make me laugh because so many Amazon sellers really haven't got a clue
Oh,
about
look,
retail.
I'm with you on this one. I came out of retail and wholesale as well in the fashion business.
Honestly,
And when people
like
come to
it's
me
happy
and say, "Hey, I
days.
want to get into retail stores," I'm like, "Yeah, no, don't." You know.
Yeah, I do. I say don't bother. I mean, I don't like. I've got a few retailers that I still work with. I still work with my very first retailer, Jojo Maman Bebe, who were the
Oh
first.
yes, I used. You know what? I used to buy from them. I had a baby clothes website, and I actually
Oh, okay.
contacted them, and I used to buy their products to sell here online in Australia. It's a small
Yeah, well, there you
world.
go. So they've sold Snooze Shade since 2010, and they're still
Mhm.
selling it now. So, they've been loyal, and I've been loyal, and that's been really good. But I have dumped a lot of the bigger retailers because the margins were just
Just not
pathetic.
there. So it's not
And on
worth
top
it,
of
right?
that, I had to produce such a huge quantity of
And
stock
then they
in order
want you
to
to
be
make
in
a
stock.
marketing contribution.
Oh, and they want marketing contributions, but also they just want you to have stock available as and when they want it without giving you any forecasts either.
Yeah,
So you'd be sitting there like doing this, like, well, I think you're going to sell this amount, that amount,
yeah.
whatever. And half the time, even if they did do a forecast, it was completely wrong. So, either too low or too high.
Mhm.
And so actually, financially, it's meant that I can actually produce the amount of stock I feel I actually need
Yep.
versus the amount of stock that somebody else might need,
Mhm.
which is a lot easier to work with.
Right.
Um,
So you brought the distribution back to yourself to Amazon. Did you launch globally or did you start with the UK?
No, I started with the UK because I'm a big believer in sort of learn how to do
Hmm.
things. So what actually happened was that in 2014, I met up with Amazon Vendor Central again
Yes.
at the same trade show I mentioned that
Yep.
I was at
Sure.
in
Hmm.
2010. And the buyer was really, I mean, the buyers had been trying to get me like in the US
Yep.
and the UK, because I used to go to the trade shows in the US as well. And
Hmm.
they'd been trying to get me to come back on board with Vendor like for literally the whole time.
Yep.
And I just kept saying no, no,
Yep.
no, no, no. And then I realized that actually my listings were a total mess,
Hmm.
because of all the number of resellers that I had on
Yep.
on all the products. Because by now I have like 13 different products.
Hmm.
And so I decided that I would actually go back with Vendor Central, and they helped me sort the listings out, get them tidied up, etc., etc. And I still sell one product with them in the UK via Vendor Central.
Right.
And then well, I mean, the reason I actually started the whole chain was actually because I saw these Facebook ads which were telling me that if I wanted to, I could just sit on a beach drinking pina coladas, pinging away as Amazon did all the work.
Of course. Haven't we all seen those? Oh, gotta love that.
I want some of that, thank you very much indeed, because here I am like working my bits off,
Yep.
and actually I'd much rather just be sort of sitting around on a beach drinking pina coladas.
And how's that
um,
worked out for you?
yeah, well, I've actually got a white streak here, which I call my Seller Central streak, which is
Right.
has definitely been developed over the last sort of few years. So
Yep.
yeah, that's not really kind of how it works, but it's definitely a dream that some people either sell or fall for.
Well,
Um,
both through. There's people out there that sell that dream, and a lot of people that
People fall
still,
for it. I mean,
unfortunately,
I'm
fall.
a real like, you know what,
Yep.
like, make money takes time, effort, hard
Of
work.
course. Look, it's yep, business, and that's what I've always said to people is treat it as a business, and it will treat you as a business. Treat it as a
Yeah,
get rich quick scheme, and you may as well put your money in the lottery because
or just give it to me. It's fine. I
oh,
mean,
give it to me.
I'm
Yep,
happy. Not a
absolutely,
problem. Um,
absolutely.
so anyway, so I went to a conference where there was a 2-day conference where it was a lot of Amazon sellers, and they
Yep.
were talking about techniques and stuff, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, this is really interesting. And I think my marketing background and my PR background kind of really kind of gelled with a lot of what the people who were doing well, what they were doing, and also just starting to understand the sort of the logical nature of it as well. So there's
Mhm.
a lot of logic to selling on Amazon,
Yes.
which there's no I don't really believe there's no magic sauce.
No.
It's a
No.
combination of many factors, but most of them are pretty common sense and
Mhm.
obvious. Like, for example, what are the keywords that sell for you? Well, they're going to be the ones that people actually look for, not ones that
Yep.
they don't. And
Yes.
actually, do you want to be trying to compete with a huge major brand on massive keywords which
Yep.
everyone's going to be going for, or would you rather have maybe slightly less sales but actually higher volume of conversion
But yep.
on lower level keywords
At a
which less
better
people are looking
margin
for?
and make more
And a
profit,
better
right?
margin, exactly.
Yep.
So that's all been really interesting also. So I started selling in the UK, and basically in the first year, I did, I think, like, I don't know, I can't remember what I did, but I did well, and then basically it's been kind of doubling year on year since then. So that was
Nice.
26 April 2016 is when I actually started selling direct on Amazon,
Right.
because I also had to, unfortunately, I had to get rid of all these sellers
I
who were
was going to
selling my
say,
products.
how did you do that? Because if you've
I stopped
been
selling to everybody. It
right, so you
hurt.
just stopped selling. Yep.
To everybody.
Yep.
I didn't sell myself. I didn't sell to other people. And I just basically got everyone to get rid of their stock.
Hmm.
Mainly because also the problem I had was, one of the things I am really passionate about is I do have a brand. I do
Hmm.
have something that has a value, and I want to see it represented properly. Now, for example, one of the things that I had to deal with, and even Vendor Central struggled to get rid of it, was I had a picture of a blue blanket, like, as the main image for some reason.
Right.
The copy didn't even like, sometimes wasn't even talking about my product, because
Hmm.
resellers don't necessarily, particularly third party resellers who are reselling, drop shipping, or whatever they're
Yeah.
doing,
They don't
they
know what
don't
they're doing.
necessarily
Yep.
care about what
Yep.
they're doing. They just want to get the volume. I also had multiple asins created for the same products, because
Which is
some
against terms of
sellers thought,
service. Yes.
yeah, so exactly. But some sellers obviously thought that by doing snooze shade colon, that therefore they were going to get more sales than going on the main listing, and
Yep.
things like that. So I learned a lot of the sort of the negatives and what not to do that
Hmm.
way as well, which was quite interesting.
Hmm.
And And now, I mean, every now and then I do get the odd reseller because, I have a big retailer who offloads a whole load of stock
Yeah.
at the end of the season.
Right.
It's
So somebody
fine.
comes in.
The stock,
Yeah.
I keep my pricing and everything consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else fights for the fish
Scraps.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. Knock yourselves out, I
Mhm.
hope everyone makes money, which is the most important thing. I mean, I think actually what I've seen a lot of is I think sellers have actually been a bit braver and put their prices up because they've realized I'm not, I don't
You're
care.
not getting
If
down in
I
the
don't
muck with
sell,
them. Yep.
yeah, if I don't sell a single product because they've all got lower prices, I really don't care.
Mm.
But I do like to see, I hope that they increase their own prices because the brand has a value,
Yep.
and therefore to kind of discount it to like silly money where they're probably not even covering their costs.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
Seems stupid.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You're very much speaking my language there. I do pretty much the same. Okay, so are there particular tools that you like to use when it comes to your Amazon business? Are there
Yeah, so
softwares
actually,
that you
weirdly,
prefer?
although it's not a sort of cutting edge, because I think, I mean, they've had their API cut like everybody else has from Amazon's back end. The merchant words,
Oh, yes.
I
Yep.
actually like. I like merchant words just for a sort of general sense of a quick and easy general sense of like volumes of keywords and
Yeah.
styles of keywords, and it's quite useful, particularly if you've got a brand, because
Mhm.
you can see whether or not you're getting any searches for that brand name
Yep.
in any other markets and what kind
Mhm.
of level you are. And once you kind of understand your keywords, it's a lot easier to go in and just check and see
Mhm.
how popular that keyword is or not,
Yep.
as the case may be.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember Merchant Words was one of the very first I used back in 2015, but I haven't been back to them sort of, oh goodness, probably in 4 years or so. So
Yeah, I still use them because
okay.
I love Helium 10, so I use a
Hmm.
lot of Helium 10 tools.
Hmm.
But I would say that I do think that's at the next level. I use Merchant Words as my sort of first check
Right.
rather than as a sort of in-depth tool.
Gotcha.
But I do find it useful. I mean, I've got quite a few little cool like NHTML thing I use, amazonproductdescription.com, I think it is,
Hmm.
that I use for putting
Oh, to get
basic
the
HTML
HTML on your listings. Yep.
into listings. I use Ask the Public, which is good
Yes.
for keywords. Google AdWords I use a lot as well because actually people are searching for the same thing on Google as they are on
Hmm.
Amazon, and actually Amazon spends a fortune spent on Google AdWords anyway.
Yep.
So that's always a good one to look at in terms of
Hmm.
trends and things.
So, because I know you've got still, your global websites. In fact, I was having a look at your Australian website this morning
Yeah.
just in preparation for this conversation. So, what percentage of your global sales are on Amazon as opposed to your own websites now?
Oh God, I'd say about 80% is probably Amazon.
Right.
So I keep the websites. They're more for brand
Yep.
awareness,
Mm-hmm.
SEO purposes,
Mm-hmm.
telling the story, giving customers the reassurance that there is a real person, a real
Yep. Real
business
brand. Yep. Mm-hmm.
behind the brand, because
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things I see a lot. I mean, I am a massive Amazon shopper. I use
Yes.
my Amazon Prime constantly, and
Yes.
I buy from all sorts. And it's really interesting because once you start selling on Amazon and you know a few of the tricks and the things, and you
Yes.
start spotting
You buy
that
differently, right?
you do buy differently, and you don't always base it always on reviews because it depends
Mm-hmm.
on the kind of
Yeah.
reviews that they're getting and also the images that they've used, and you can see it's all the same picture for
Yep.
6 different brands,
Mm-hmm.
all the rest of it. But the thing is that makes me laugh the most, well, not laugh the most, but the thing that I think that where there's an opportunity for a lot of sellers to do better is they should actually be building a brand, a
Yes.
real brand, not
Yep.
just an Amazon brand. Because actually, when I look at when I buy, I want to feel like as if somebody cares if I have a bad experience.
Yes.
And getting a piece of paper through that says, we care, and email us if you have a problem before you put a bad review up. It's not the same
Doesn't really
thing.
mean we care.
And
Yes. It
the
means we
cost
care
of
about our
like
reviews. Yep.
exactly. And so for the cost of like a Shopify website or a WordPress domain or whatever, so many people are not putting up even the basic kind of
Yep.
footprint. They're
Oh,
not on
you
social
absolutely have to,
media.
because people, what I found is even if they buy on Amazon, they'll see your product. If they don't know your brand, they'll go off Amazon to search for it, and then they'll come back to Amazon to
Back to
buy.
Amazon.
So,
Well, and that's another thing I do as well, is I always have Amazon clickable links on my websites,
yep.
because I don't really care if someone buys from Amazon or not. A lot of people are very data obsessed, and they're like,
Mhm.
well, I want all the data. And there are many people out there who are building huge businesses based on the fact that they don't sell on Amazon. And I get
Yep.
that as well. But actually, I'm more about what works best for the customer, and what works best for the customer is what they want to do, not what I
Yep.
want them to do.
Yep.
And so therefore on all my websites, I have links for every product. If I sell it on Amazon, then there's a link to every single country, so
Mhm.
that if they come in and then they go to the wrong website, or they like, or sometimes I have people buying for friends who are based in the
Yes.
US. And so,
Yep.
all they have to do is click on that link to go through to Amazon.com, and away they
Yep.
go.
Beautiful.
So I'm all about customer. Like, I think that's
Mhm.
another thing that a lot of sellers well,
They
and this is an
forget. They
example.
forget the customer journey. It was
Yeah,
interesting. I
and they
was
forget,
looking at
well,
a one of my coaching clients the other day, and we were looking at their listings, and their listings had been, and I use this term very loosely, professionally written, and
oh, I love those ones.
and it was all it was a string of keywords, and
Oh,
coming in and their product was a lovely product, but coming in as a customer, if I
yeah, you
wasn't
just
coming
feel
in
like,
looking specifically for that product, I would have no clue as to what it was that was being sold.
yeah.
Um,
Or who buy.
or who buy, or
Yeah,
really anything. The pictures were pretty, um, but the bullets and the keywords were literally Google SEO type string. It was just frightening.
well, and I also see a lot of very bad English,
Yep.
a lot of very bad translations, a lot of bad words on images. I mean, I
Yep.
see it all the time. And the problem is that it doesn't look professional. And
No.
forget anything else, it just doesn't look professional. It
Yeah.
takes
And
5 minutes to put
people can
something through
tell.
spell
Like
check.
people, yeah, people can tell. I mean, I have almost identical listings in the US and the UK, but there are words that are spelt differently. So I make
Yeah,
sure, and even my packaging, I have two different lots of packaging to have different spellings on product that goes to the UK compared to a product that goes to the US. And it's
yeah,
not, we're not talking huge. It's only like something really little, but I notice, you
yeah.
know, it's just like if I'm in Australia, because if I'm in Australia or the UK and I get a product that's got American spelling on it, then I'm like, yeah, not so much.
Yeah, I
So,
think I generally try and avoid any spelling things.
mhm,
Having said that, I sort of cross translate. So I'll call it a pram and a stroller. And
yeah,
obviously the listing in the States will focus on stroller, whereas in the UK it'll be pram.
pram. That's right.
So I tend to do that. I don't do like different packaging. I
Yeah,
just for across different countries. I
yeah. Look,
just
it
tend to,
depends on your category. Just in my particular products, it's relevant. So,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
um, um, great. So, what's next?
What's next?
Are you still expanding your product range, or are
Yeah,
you?
yeah. Next year, I'm planning on. I mean, this year's been obviously a bumpy one for everybody,
Of course.
um, to say the least.
Yes.
But I've got through it successfully, so that was amazing.
Well, babies are still being born, and they keep saying there's going to be a baby boom, COVID
Well,
boom
they do
coming up.
keep saying that. I don't know. I mean, if we have had a baby boom, it would have been kind of around September, October. But I mean, there are quite a few babies being born left, right, and centre. So,
Yeah.
we're keeping an eye on that, obviously.
Well,
But yeah, I
I
mean,
certainly know in Australia, like a lot of people got puppies. There's a real
oh my God,
puppy
so
boom.
many puppies, so many puppies.
These, but the problem is now people are going back to work, and those poor puppies are
They
at
can't walk
home.
them. I know. I know. I mean, that's the great thing about cats.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you.
I'm a
They're like,
total cat.
go, 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 get out of here.
Yeah. All I have to do is get my neighbor in, because normally I travel quite a lot, and obviously
Yes.
this year I haven't. And normally my neighbor just comes in and looks after the cats and gives them a
Mm.
stroke and gives them a bit of a cuddle maybe, but that's all they need. Whereas I was like, I can't have a dog. My
No.
lifestyle doesn't suit having a dog.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm.
Yeah. So in terms of next year, I've got probably about 4 or 5 different kind of products
Mhm.
that I'm planning on bringing out. They're just sort of, a lot of them are developments on existing products. There's a couple
Yep.
of white label things that I'm bringing out, but they're
Mhm.
white. I want to say white label. They're not really white label, because they'll be snooze shaded. In terms of, I never take anything straight off the shelf.
Right. Yeah.
I want things done to my standards, and not
Mhm.
everybody does things to my standards, and particularly in terms of safety.
Mhm.
So that always adds extra cost to my manufacturing,
Yeah.
but it's
Mhm.
just one of those things, and I sleep well at night because of
Yep.
it. Um, And then also this year I started actually also teaching some people about how to sell on Amazon properly, how to take a brand, and, you know, even existing Amazon sellers, how to kind of create more of a buzz around branding.
Well, with your
how
PR background,
yeah, using that side of things. So I've got a Facebook page, which I do that through, although I'll be honest, and I'm not doing very much with it at the moment, but probably next year I'll ramp it up. I'm in the middle of writing a book on how to invent a best-selling product. I'm 2/3 of the way through that. I'm doing a digital course on how to invent a product. So yeah, I'm just sort of keeping myself busy, but not too busy, because I mean, one of the things I like about my lifestyle now is that whilst the early years of Snoo Shade were literally like kill myself kind of 20-hour days, plus I was a full-time mum as well. Now I'm able to, like this week I've just had the whole week off completely. I've just been
so
tidying
you're
my house.
living you're in your hammock with your pina colada.
I am, although it's very cold, so I wouldn't actually be drinking pina colada outside of my hammock. I have been inside being all toasty and warm and tidying my house and getting it all, because I moved house 3 times in 2017, and I just lived like with a lot of things, you know, all over the place. So I've just been doing, one of my neighbors came over and we've like been actually like tidy, because she's my support bubble, so we're allowed to do that, thank goodness, because I'm a single mum. So I'm allowed to attach myself to one.
See, we didn't get the single bubble until I think about 8 weeks in. We didn't even have that.
No, we've had that, I think, since quite early days, which has obviously been quite a good thing for me. So I mean, you know, I always keep busy, but at the same time, you know, I'm like, I also quite enjoy the sort of, I say slow pace life. I don't think I'm actually capable of doing slow pace. I think my version of slow pace is other people's on speed. But for me, it feels slow. I think that's the thing.
Okay, so if you had a piece of advice for somebody who's looking at Amazon as a business opportunity, okay, we're going to be upfront and say it's not the 4-hour work week, but if you did have a piece of advice who perhaps is looking at it and are looking to get started, looking back on your 10-year, looks like journey so far, what would your piece of advice be?
I'd say that you have to really care about what you're doing and be passionate about what you're doing, because the thing is I know a lot of people do it and it's just a money-making exercise, but I don't know, I think maybe for women, maybe more than men, I think it's really important that if you're going to give up your spare time, if you're going to feel guilty about the fact that you're working instead of spending time with your children, which you will, you know, there is no such thing as balance, you know, I mean, you know, whatever anyone says, you know, running your own business is very time consuming. It's really hard work. And, you know, especially if you're a full-time parent as well, you know, you have to make sacrifices that if you're going to succeed. So it has to be something that you really passionately believe in, I think, because that's what gets you through the really rough, bumpy times, is the fact you kind of have a belief in what you're doing, that it's actually a really good thing. Whereas I think if I was just doing something that was just all about the money, I think I probably would have like fallen at one of the first hurdles, I think.
That's excellent. So it goes back to knowing your why. That's fabulous. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Probably on my Facebook page, which is Make It, Market It, Sell It.
Beautiful.
So
I'll put links to that in the show notes and below the video as well. So that's awesome. Thank you so much, Cara. You can go to sleep now in your comfy warm jammies. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to, once we're able to, travel to catching up with you somewhere in the world. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.